Hey guys, Troy here with Seller.Tools, and today we're talking about pricing strategy. We are getting into the latter part of Q4 here, which I think is a great time as Black Friday, Cyber Monday are behind us to really reevaluate our pricing strategy, whether we don't have a pricing strategy or we need to revisit our existing pricing strategy. I want to give you sort of two ideas, two takeaways to create a spectrum with which we can think about pricing. Because more often than not, I think as first-time sellers, brand owners in the Amazon space, our pricing strategy is typically just a reflection of what we see in the marketplace. It's very much driven by the competitive landscape, which is totally fine. Positioning is an important piece of the equation, but I want to introduce these other sort of the two ends of the spectrum to give you some ideas, some brainstorming ideas that you can use as you revisit your pricing strategy. So being in the Amazon space, Amazon sellers, let's start with the Bezos approach, as I'll call it. And essentially, Jeff Bezos is famous for saying, my competitor's margin is my opportunity. And so he leverages that difference, that space that the margin creates, and welcomes a fair amount of margin scarcity to essentially beat his competition, to create lower price points, to be willing and to essentially welcome lower margins, because essentially his vision is so large and so long that he is willing to take that short-term concession to realize that long-term vision. And as we've seen with Amazon, how this plays out with mergers, acquisitions, strategic partnerships, all sorts of ways to add value, but there's not always that margin that shows up at the bottom line in the short term. It's a longer term play. And so if we were to deploy something like that, what it would really emphasize is us first and foremost knowing our numbers and then really embracing the implications of that type of approach, which is really almost inherent with a longer term vision. So we've got that end of things with the Bezos approach, and then all the way on the other side of the spectrum is really where we get to premium or luxury pricing, almost irrespective of the quality or value of the product. This is when we get into concepts like the Veblen effect, the Chivas Regal effect, which are effectively synonymous, but essentially what they say and what it boils down to is that the price of an item is indicative of its relative quality or value. So it's a really important piece. This is again where luxury brands kind of get away with there not being as much maybe utility, use, or function with the product, but that perception is driven by the price alone. And so we can use this at the brand level, we could use this at the product level, whether we're looking at gateway or hero products and how we want to price those to welcome the other products in the line. But I think it's important to introduce sort of the spectrum from which you can arrive at your final price, whether it's margin scarcity or that's luxury premium pricing. And then really, the implications with this type of approach where you're leveraging the Veblen effect, where the perception is, oh, this is a higher quality item because the price is so high, that it's how you deploy that margin that becomes really crucial. Because of course you can pocket that difference in terms of the return, or you can redeploy that capital, reinvest it to see greater returns over time. So as with any approach, the considerations that I would really stress is at the end of the day, knowing your numbers, the implications of your pricing, and then really driving it by your vision and your strategy. That is the sort of the core and key takeaways, no matter how you arrive at your pricing, keeping in mind the spectrum that we've created today, how many are often driven by the competitive landscape, which is, again, totally fine. Positioning is a core part and piece of the equation, and then understanding where you're at in your business cycle, where if you're a new entrant into the marketplace, positioning may be a focal point where you overemphasize the competitive landscape and maybe don't think as strategically or play with some of the advantages of different pricing strategies. So I wanted to share some of those takeaways with you. I would encourage you, again, reevaluate your pricing strategy. Know why you're priced the way you are. Many times we may just, again, arrive at a price and not be thinking about what's the desired outcome, what's the longer term vision, what are the implications. So take the time to do that today, guys, or as you wrap up Q4. Let me know in the comments what you think of this content and how you've arrived at your pricing. Let's see if we can continue the dialogue there. But hopefully this was helpful for you as you wrap up Q4 and look to having a successful new year coming into 2019. So thanks so much, guys.